Compassion fatigue is a real thing, and I think in the last year, especially with the war in Ukraine, there's been a huge outpouring of support for refugees, but obviously it's intense and there are needs all over the world. For me as an actor, I suppose I use my skills listening to people's stories. I think more than anything, something that you can do to lend your time and empathy and kindness to individuals, and to be able to really hear and share those stories. And for me personally, that's also in writing, that's also in painting. I've painted some people that I've met, and also to be able to write an op-ed or an article that focuses on their journey is something that I've been able to do as well. And then of course, you know, social media and sharing people's journeys in that way.